Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now. Hey miners, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the new home of power mining analysis. In today's episode, Anthony Power and I have a jam-packed agenda for you. We're going to be starting off with some key updates in terms of macro Bitcoin news, talking about the impacts on the Bitcoin mining stocks and on Bitcoin price overall. Then we're going to transition into some more recent developments and cover some current news from Bitdeer and IREN in today's video. So a lot to go through. Before we get into it though, you know the deal. Smash the like button, you guys. It's huge help to myself, the channel. Anthony loves it. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comment section below how you're feeling about the Bitcoin mining sector in general, your outlook for the last few months of 2024, and which of these companies you're currently holding in your own portfolio. Now, with that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay, guys, that's right. Monday morning, a big start to the week. This time in the red, Bitcoin moving down in traditional fashion on Monday morning opens, Anthony. It seems like clockwork here. Bitcoin pulling back quite considerably, about 4% last time I looked. The miners holding up relatively well, which is nice to see for once. This correlation has slowed down a little bit, at least to the downside. So we're going to be talking about some key macro updates, some news, some developments in the headlines right now. Then we're going to narrow it down to the Bitcoin mining sector and talk about some specific developments from Bitdeer and our good friends at IREN today. So a lot to go through, Anthony. Monday morning, how was your weekend? How are you feeling?
Yeah, feeling good. Had a good weekend. My football team won, so that's a positive thing. And so, yeah, all ready to go Monday.
Yeah, unfortunately on the sports betting, my wife's doing a keeper league in the NFL. So for our North American viewers, you'll know what that is. She got me to pick the team. I bet for the Baltimore Ravens. They were the biggest favorite this week and they lost, Anthony. So the wife is now out of her work NFL tournament in week 2 because of me. So I'm glad your team won. Our team didn't. With that being said, let's talk about some news. So first and foremost, ETFs on Friday the 13th. So little bit of a coincidence there, saw $263 million of inflows, Anthony. So this was actually the second largest day, the highest day we've seen in 2 months. We've been talking about the inflows, outflows. It's really been going back and forth between green and red days. Nice to see an end of a week so strong with over $250 million of net inflow. How are you feeling about that move?
Yeah, we've witnessed some of these big days with the inflows there. We in fact only last week we were talking about the outflows. We had, I think, 8 days in succession where we had outflows. But we know that it's volatile, and we know that there'll be more purchases of these Bitcoin. People are really interested. I got stopped today and asked by a couple of people how they could purchase Bitcoin. So from unlikely people, to be honest with you, and so maybe the adoption is slowly but surely getting further out there to those people that haven't been witnessing what's been going on for the last few years.
Yeah, it feels like the word is spreading. We're starting to see more and more mainstream media outlets picking up not only Bitcoin mining, but Bitcoin in general. We've actually got a really interesting story from Norway we're going to touch on in a second here. But before we do, Anthony, this table came out from Lark Davis, so another good account on X. Talks about Bitcoin all-time highs. Now, I wanted to bring this up because this is an interesting angle. We talk about inflation and deflation in relation to monetary policy and Bitcoin, but not often do we talk about inflation on previous Bitcoin all-time highs. So interestingly enough, if you put this information into a inflation calculator stating in 2021, the all-time high for Bitcoin was $69,000. Then in 2024, what would that price work out to? It comes out to just north of $80,000, essentially a 15% rate of inflation, or 15.9%. So with that being said, Anthony, using this logic, technically we haven't hit adjusted or inflation adjusted all-time highs yet in this cycle.
Well, what this is actually stating to you is, and it's true. You just have to look at your normal shopping basket now compared to what it was like 3 years ago, before all your food prices started going through the roof. I mean, the purchasing power of a dollar or a pound or another or a euro, you need more now than you did in 2021, and globally the rates will be at least around that sort of position for the 3 years in between. So quite rightly, we haven't reached anywhere near that level yet. We've reached 74,000 this year, so we're still quite significantly down, at nearly sort of like 8-9% short of the all-time high based on that inflation there. And by having a dollar in 2021 and trying to get as much as you purchase in 2021 nowadays, you just can't do it. It's basically saying that dollar in 2021 is now worth 84 cents or something like that. So that's what how the inflation calculation would work that way. And so, but the expectation that Bitcoin, as it goes through the cycles, we're anticipate in this bull cycle to at least get higher than the previous all-time high.
Yeah, you would definitely hope so. And the interesting point about this statement or post is, if this is in fact the way you look at this with the inflation adjusted number, then we have not yet hit the all-time high, meaning we may be earlier in the cycle. So a very interesting takeaway from Lark Davis. We've been listening to a lot of the technical guys. We're going to try and have one on next week for our live podcast as well, Anthony, and get a bit of an update on where they feel we are within this cycle, because as we talk about a lot, you and I don't do forward price, and thankfully not, because it's been a tough one to predict. Now, last week we talked about corporations, non-Bitcoin mining companies that are starting to put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Interestingly enough, I came across another post by Vivek here talking about SpaceX, so the creator of Starlink, and obviously Elon's other pet child other than Twitter and Tesla. This one's super interesting, Anthony, stating that SpaceX, which is a private company, has about $500 million worth of Bitcoin on their balance sheet.
Yeah, I mean, for somebody that wasn't totally positive, I mean, yes, he bought a significant amount of Bitcoin back in 2021 and was able to move the price to that initial all-time high, but then he quickly chose to sell some in the following quarter, and his excuse was he was just testing to make sure that he could and everything was okay with it. But he still hasn't come back and said people can buy Tesla cars with Bitcoin. So that was one of the things he was looking to do when he felt that the energy used to mine Bitcoin was showing, a positive towards renewable energy. Then he would consider letting people use Bitcoin. And then for this sort of update to come out and say that he's actually got Bitcoin held in his other company, SpaceX, it's quite interesting. But interesting but positive. It's still over 8,000 Bitcoin, so slightly less than the likes of Marathon, Riot, and Hut, and slightly more than the likes of CleanSpark have got in their holdings. So not a small amount. But yes, it's good to see another company has it on the balance sheet.
Yeah, it sure is. Only a few billionaires need to spend some money on Bitcoin, and it throws out the graphs, the tables, the charts, and really can get it moving, especially in these private situations or companies. Now, moving along, Anthony, on the macro stage here, a couple of other key points we wanted to mention. So we've talked about the federal election coming up. Obviously, this is a big Bitcoin election this year. We're starting to see rallying on both sides of the aisle, which is great. The Bitcoin ETF, so we've talked about that quite a bit in terms of coverage throughout the year. We just talked about that big inflow on Friday. Obviously, the halving has taken place this year, so that was another key macro event. Two that we haven't talked about a lot here, and this is courtesy of WonderFi. So this is actually the platform that owns BitBuy here in Canada. That's where I purchase all of my crypto through. They put out this post talking about some key macro updates to watch throughout this year. We've covered the first three, Anthony, but the following two, the FTX credit distribution, So in a nutshell, if you guys aren't familiar, essentially creditors are being paid back from the FTX situation. The thinking is this money was invested in crypto prior. These are all people who want to be invested in crypto. Obviously, FTX wasn't the best vehicle to do that. The thinking is once they get all this money back, they're going to start redeploying that into the market. What do you make of that thesis, Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the majority of creditors are going to get repaid. At one point, everyone thought they'd effectively been screwed by Sam. You know, he's serving a long time in prison now for illegal activities that were deemed he'd carried out, and the price of Bitcoin and the price of some of the other assets in crypto has increased, and therefore it's made the ability to repay people who made those initial investments. So I see that as it's a positive thing. They'll have that funding, and if they're still interested in Bitcoin, that means there's plenty of that funding potentially going back into Bitcoin. So again, more purchasing power, more adoption, only positive news.
Yeah, continuing with that positive theme, which is great to see. Hopefully those people aren't too gun shy from Bitcoin in general, and they can find another custodian or exchange or ETF to deploy. Now, the final one on the list, one we really haven't talked about much, is interest rates. So in Canada, the UK, we've actually been cutting interest rates over the last few periods. The United States here is expected to cut again this week. So they've got a Fed meeting. It's a 2-day meeting. It wraps up with a Fed decision announcement on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So that's going to be the critical time to watch. However, it's widely expected that they are going to cut rates. Now, traditionally, what this means is monetary policy. They're going to start up the money printers. They're going to ease rates. They're going to try and get more money into the system, stimulate spending and activity. Generally, this has been very good for Bitcoin because as more dollars are printed, the relative deflationary nature of Bitcoin takes hold and the price of Bitcoin goes up. So this should be good, Anthony. We're expecting to see rate cuts across the board. So not only for your mortgage and your savings accounts, but also good in a way for Bitcoin. How are your thoughts on monetary policy and I guess leading into the election? Do we expect to see continued rate cuts?
Well, rate cuts are always a positive. So every government, as you go into election, will try to look at putting these through because it means that they're reducing, taxes effectively. So it's improved position for normal everyday voters. So certainly in the UK, the Conservatives were trying to get rate cuts, and the same's happening in the US before the election there. So. It's a positive thing, but it should be done when it's required. And I think with a lot of countries now, if you look at inflation where it was when we were coming out of COVID, and it was in double digits in the majority of even the largest economies in the world. Never mind all the countries, but even the largest economies were having double-digit inflation rates, and so. Those rates now, we've seen those come down. I know in the UK, inflation's now down to around about the 2%. And so when it gets down to that level, then there's an opportunity to look at, cutting the interest rates because it feels like, monetary policy has been working and therefore a reduction in spend. People spend; they're not just going out there just spending everything. So and this will be a positive both sides. So I don't know what size the rate cut it will be. You can see on the screenshot there that the potentially between 25 and 50 basis points. So who knows? But bear in mind, not too many years ago, you could. In the US, you could get a 30-year mortgage for around about 3%, and at the moment, that's probably closer to 6%. So we've seen rates go significantly higher over the last few years, and this is a case of now that things are in a little bit more control, we can start seeing the rates come down, and that will be good news for everybody.
Sure. Yeah, we have our home mortgage that renews in November here, so that's good news. Along with having two kids who love eating fruit, and I've noticed the price on watermelon and berries and all that stuff coming down as well here in Canada. So nice to see on all aspects. So again, you guys, I would encourage you to take a look at this Wonderfy post. They do a thread. They talk about each one of these macro factors in more detail, but definitely important if you're investing in the Bitcoin mining space to understand some of those bigger economic trends. Now, narrowing into our area of expertise, Anthony, I wanted to talk about the Bitcoin miners. MicroStrategy also gets talked about on the channel every once in a while. Our good friend Michael Saylor is back at it, making a sizable purchase here last week. I'll let you talk through the details, Anthony, but another huge buyer, huge bull for Bitcoin, and a very bullish statement or sentiment coming from MicroStrategy.
Yeah, I mean, they've been pretty relentless for the last 3 or 4 years now, buying Bitcoin with regularity. And again, another announcement of a number of purchases through the month of August, totaling another $1.1 billion. I think it was something like 18,000 Bitcoin, just over 18,000 Bitcoin. So, a significant amount. That's more than nearly twice the amount that Riot having its hodl at the moment, and Riot's got the second largest hodl of all the Bitcoin miners. Only Marathon has got more than that, and that takes MicroStrategy, I think, to about 245,000 Bitcoin as a total. So probably close to 15 billion dollars, and they've seen their market capitalization during this period literally give them a premium on that Bitcoin of literally 100%. So, wasn't too long ago we saw a market cap of 29 billion when they only had literally 14.5 billion on the balance sheet. So he's not stopping there. He's effectively all in on Bitcoin, and there's nobody in the space as positive as Michael Saylor in this position.
Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today. There sure isn't. I remember in Nashville him talking about the Bitcoin Maxi, the 2x Maxi and the 3x Maxi, saying if you're a 3x, you need to sell all your property and cars and throw that all into Bitcoin. So again, I don't think anyone in the world is as bullish as Michael Saylor, but great to see that buying pressure and eating up all those Bitcoin. Now, final story before we get into Bitdeer and IREN here, Anthony. Kind of a bittersweet story, I guess, or a told you so moment for the Bitcoin community. We've got a mayor of Hadsel. So this is a small community in Norway, about 8,200 residents. There was a Bitcoin mine in town. They weren't too happy about the sound or the noise pollution. So they held a petition. They actually kicked this Bitcoin miner out of town. And because they were such a big consumer of electricity, the byproduct of that is all of these local residents' electricity costs jumped by hundreds of dollars, 20% a month. So interestingly enough, Anthony, we've been talking a lot, especially in North America, about how important Bitcoin mining is to the grid, to stabilizing energy, to reducing overall costs. We've heard Matt Schultz from CleanSpark talk about the way they partner with those local communities to bring down the energy prices. And when those Bitcoin miners leave town, it has a big impact on these communities.
Yeah, and the Bitcoin miners, are able to balance the load. So when the energy is available, they're happy to take it. They pay for that energy. That keeps costs down for everybody. And when the energy is required by the domestic requirement, they'll switch off, and it's literally, minutes to switch off all the rigs and let the domestic supply use that energy. But no, this is actually in terms of what, not great for the miner, but a great piece to highlight what Bitcoin miners actually do. So, these residents who, were really pleased when the announcement, after they campaigned for so many years to close the mine, actually happened. And then they realized that they would have to foot the extra bill to compensate for the lost revenue. And that worked out at sort of $235 to $280 a year, which is a significant amount in this day. We've just talked about inflation and trying to manage costs. So, in one way, yes, they've achieved what they set out to do, but it comes at a cost to them. So I'm just wondering now how many of them are still sort of like happy that they've been successful in getting rid of a mining company that was actually, to a certain extent, helping keeping their bills down.
Yeah, totally subsidizing the energy rate. I wonder if the peace and quiet's worth the $230, Anthony. I guess it depends how close to that mine you live in the town. Now, moving along, you guys, to the miner specific updates here. We've got two for you today. Bitdeer coming out with a very interesting approach, I guess, to getting rid of some of their older equipment. So we'll talk through that one as well. And then IREN coming out with a blockbuster update here, both on the HPC and self-mining front. So maybe we'll do Bitdeer first, Anthony. We've been talking for a long time about the resale value, the fleet value, the intrinsic value of these machines. Bitdeer, obviously, with their Seal Miner platform, is very confident in their ability to backfill their facilities and to flush out these rigs with their new Seal Miner technology. The problem now for them is, what do they do with the old equipment? And they've come up with a really interesting solution here. We got a picture of their website. I'll let you talk through the Bitdeer auction approach, Anthony.
Yeah, so Bitdeer like a lot of the miners, when you're buying new machines, and in Bitdeer's case, they're not buying new machines, they're actually building their own new machines using the Seal Miner technology that they've created in-house to deliver this. And those are being produced now, ready for delivery in Q4. And so what they'll do is they'll look to utilize these new machines, these more efficient mining machines, to replace some of the old ones in the fleet. Now, to these North American miners, a lot of them now are replacing the S19s, which came in 3 or 4 years ago. Now, to other miners around the world, most of them will still have S19s, or, be looking to, maybe get their hands on S19s. If people have got access to really cheap power, then they can still make a profit out of mining with S19. So what Bitdeer have done is they've scheduled an auction for about 2,880 S19s. They're located in Norway, and they're going to run an auction for these. It's scheduled to happen 24th to 26th of September, with shipment due to occur in mid-October. And these machines were purchased around about 3.5 years, December 2020 to May 2021. So just over 3 years old, these machines. And they're currently deployed at their tidal facility in Norway. If you look at the hash rate, 2,880 units, it's about 250 petahash, so a quarter of an exahash. The efficiency of these is about 30 joules a terahash. Now, they're starting the bidding at literally $1 per terahash. So interested parties, can go onto the site during that period and submit their bids. And it's an interesting way of doing it through an auction. But believe you me, we've seen many of the big miners upgrade their fleets, and that they've been, trying to sell the older fleets, and there'll be people out there ready to buy them. If you've got access to really cheap power or stranded energy, then it makes sense to use S19s. You don't have to have the most efficient machines. You can use these. You can underclock the machines. You can get the efficiency down from 30 by doing have it set on different settings. So, I mean, the S19 at the moment, it's got a break-even price of 5.5 cents a kilowatt hour when the hash price is around 40 petahash. So, if the hash price increases between now and delivery time in October, then it makes the S19 more profitable than it is today. So potentially an optimum time for someone there to go in there and buy some machines at a reasonably good price. So the starting bid is it's $1 a terahash, but that equates to $270,000 a terahash. So we'll see how that bidding goes. And if we get a further update from Bitdeer, we'll announce it on a future podcast.
Yeah, it adds up quick. I was looking at that 270,000. So you got to have money to play in that game. I'm glad you said where those machines were located, Anthony. You said Norway. I was wondering if they just got kicked out of that facility, that town. These were the noisemaker machines, but I guess not. We've been hearing actually a lot of pricing concerns out of Norway as well. Some of those Nordic countries were very optimum for mining because of their temperature. And I've started to hear more stories about inconsistent power pricing and things like that. So interesting one to watch for sure. If you're in the market for a ton of S19, there you go. Final update, Anthony, is IREN. Now, this one across the board here, very exciting for IREN shareholders. The company is up in trading today. As mentioned, most of the miners were in the red. IREN is in the green. Just picked up 1,080 NVIDIA H200 GPUs. So these are successors to the H100. They gave an update on their cloud service, an update on their hash rate, Anthony, and their all-in cash cost per Bitcoin currently sitting at $31,000. So if you're invested in IREN right now, you are happy to see updates like this coming out.
Yeah, this is a good update. They're not holding back on the HPC AI services that they're trying to roll out. In their August update, they're already at a annualized revenue in this particular business of about 15.5 million. Bear in mind, it started at the beginning of the year significantly lower than that, so just around about a couple of million. So they've built this business up month by month. It's at 15.5 million annualized revenue. So based on the revenue they received for August, multiply that by 12 gives you the annualized figure. Now, buying these latest 200 GPUs, so we've talked about a lot of the miners have been buying the 100s, which are the older GPUs, and they've been working fine. But we noticed that even Bit Digital, with their increased contract with their customer, that's been put on hold because the customer's considering using a more up-to-date, more powerful GPU. So it looks like Bit Digital will go out and order, another model to fulfill that requirement. So we've got IREN here, who've already got, I think, over 850 of the 100s, H100 GPUs. Now they've gone out and purchased 1,080 of the H200s. And they believe that the AI services will be effectively 10% of all their earnings by year end. So by year end, the company are going to be at 30 exahash in Q4. And what they're saying there is that based on that annualized revenue of 30 exahash, 10% of that will be the effectively the amount that they're looking to achieve in AI cloud services. So that'd be a significant amount, because at 30 exahash, you're going to be bringing in, I don't know, 600 to 700 Bitcoin a month, whatever the Bitcoin price is there. So you're going to be bringing in, I don't know, 25 to 30 million a month. That could be 300 million a year, and 10% of that is about 30 million. So in very simplistic maths, that would be double the amount of business that they are at the moment. And actually, you think about it, if they're bringing in more machines that are more powerful than they've currently got, and their current annualized revenue is 15.5, that suggests at least 15.5, probably, maybe heading towards 20, even 30 million on top of where they are at the moment. So that would be another way of looking at it as well.
Just to jump in there on the upgrade cycle, we've talked about this a few times. Now that we've seen a couple of these companies starting to consider the newer model, do you have any concerns that H100 is already becoming outdated?
No, I mean, I think there's still people, most of the miners have got the H100. So the likes of Hive and Bit Digital have got quite a few H100s. They've got more H100s than IREN have got. So, but the new model comes out, and people are looking to see if that model is going to give you the return. Now, bear in mind, when any new model comes out, same with the new miner, the cost of that is significantly more. So it's not just a case of you buy at the same rate, but you're getting twice the power. No. it might be the actual cost, because it delivers twice the power, it might be twice the cost. So, you've got to recover that as well. So there'll be a lot of miners out there looking at the numbers, seeing what they have to pay out in terms of capital, what the likely return is, how long it's going to take to deliver that return. Bear in mind, on the H100s, IREN have already said the first 2 years the first years of revenues will only cover the capital costs of the actual GPU. So year 3, if it's a 3-year cycle, has to take into account all the operating costs from years 1 and 2 and years 3, and to determine what sort of a margin it actually effectively receives. That's when you have to go and buy the GPUs. Now, what we've seen the likes of Core Scientific do is they've shied away from buying GPUs. That they're just literally having a service at their facilities where the client takes responsibility for GPUs and takes responsibility for energy. So it cuts down the risk to the actual host. So the host is just responsible then for providing a secure site, and just to make sure that the power is enabled effectively. So this is a different type of model, and will take longer to recover those costs. But for me, the 2 parts of this update that were really interesting is already they've already had 18.8 exahash installed. Now, they only announced on the 4th of September that they'd achieved 16, so barely 12 days later they've already increased by another 2.8, and they're on track certainly to get to 20 by the end of the month. They've got to put another 1.2 exahash in there. Now, most of that 2.8 will have been for fleet upgrade. So from 16 to 20, I think it was 1.8 was going to be in terms of increased power capacity, and 2.2 of that 4 was about actually upgrading current models. So they'll probably taking out S19s, replacing them with S21s, and that's why you for the same space and same power, you're getting twice the actual output. So that's been really easy for some of these mining companies to grow hash rate by not actually building extra facilities. They can just, where they have the power, they can just literally upgrade machines and get a higher hash rate. And then we look at the cost as the final thing, and this is the all-in cash cost for Bitcoin of 31,000. Now, this is really, if you look in the brackets there, it's when they get to 30 exahash, and their efficiency will be at an all-time record low for any of the miners at 15 joules a terahash. And it's unlikely that any of the other miners can get down to that level in the next sort of 12 months and compete with IREN, because they've effectively changed the whole fleet to get to that number. So that would take a significant amount for the likes of the other big miners like Marathon, like CleanSpark, like Core Scientific and Riot Platforms. IREN have done it very quickly because they've grown very quickly. So where they were just over 6, I think it was less than 6 exahash in December last year, and they're already 3 times that amount now. That extra hash rate in this last 12 months has come from new machines, and now they're replacing, again, some of the older machines that were there initially, and they'll benefit from this extra hash rate from that improved fleet efficiency as well.
Yeah, they certainly will. They say timing is everything, and IREN has really timed this well with the fleet upgrade syncing up perfectly with the start of this, or hopefully the start of this bull run here. So congrats to the IREN team. Another great update. And as you say, Anthony, in terms of fleet efficiency, that's going to be a tough one to catch without either newer machines coming out or a full-fledged fleet upgrade across the board. So we'll be excited to see month-end numbers for all of the miners for September, but definitely some big moves being made. You guys, a little bit longer video here today. We covered a lot of ground. We'd be curious to hear your thoughts specifically on the macro updates, the interest rate, and obviously some of the macro Bitcoin indicators that we talked about a little bit earlier. In addition to that, if you're holding Bitdeer or IREN, let us know in the comment section below. If you're still watching, you found value, hit the like button, you guys. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. Anthony, I'll throw it back to you for any closing thoughts here, but a great session today and an excellent start to the week.
Yeah, I mean, some good updates there. I mean, it's a shame that the Bitcoin price couldn't hold out at 60, or it held for 60 most of the weekend, and then just started to come down last night. So hopefully we'll see it. We'll see a bounce back, and as I say, there's plenty of good news stories there today to keep people interested in the Bitcoin space, and look forward to the rest of the week. More news coming out.
We certainly do. A-Trades is calling for $55,000 Bitcoin this week, so we'll see if that comes true or not. You guys, great day today. Great way to start out the week. Hopefully the miners can recover throughout the last few hours of trading. We'll see you here tomorrow, and make sure to leave a comment below. Thanks so much.